So today we're going to talk about Siddhartha, which is an amazing novel written by the German-born Swiss writer Hermann Hesse. Siddhartha was first published in German in 1922, but English translations are widely available. I read this Spanish translation by Juan José del Solar, which I would recommend if you read Spanish. As usual, before going into the book itself, I would like to talk a little bit about its author, Hermann Hesse, and the context in which he wrote his novel. But first, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Juan, and I post a new spoiler-free book review every Saturday. And the best way not to miss any of my reviews is for you to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell. Okay, so let's talk about Hermann Hesse and his fantastic Siddhartha. Now, Hermann Karl Hesse was born in 1877 in the town of Calw, which is in the Black Forest, specifically in Württemberg, at the time the German Empire. Hesse's grandparents had been Christian missionaries in India, and his mother, Marie Gundert, had been born at one of those missions in India. So although Hesse grew up a Christian, he became interested in Buddhism later in life. He even traveled around Asia extensively, mostly in India, years before writing Siddhartha. Hermann Hesse is probably one of the most celebrated German language writers of all time. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1946. Apart from Siddhartha, he's famous for having written books like The Glass-Bead Game, Steppenwolf, Damien, and many other books. Hesse died in Ticino, Switzerland in 1962 at the age of 85. So let's talk now about Siddhartha, which is the only novel by Hesse I have read so far, but I am sure it won't be my last. Now, what inspired Hesse to write this novel were his experiences in India, where he spent a considerable amount of time as a young man. Now, like many Western people who go to India, and I must make an aside here and say that I have never been to India or anywhere else in Asia, Hesse became fascinated by India's culture, customs, and specifically India's spirituality. Now, in India, Hesse becomes interested in Buddhism and in the story of the Buddha himself. Now, the Buddha is known by a few different names, and Siddhartha is one of them, but this novel by Hesse is not about that Siddhartha. So in the novel, the Buddha, who appears as a character but is not the main character, is named Gautama. Now, before I read this novel, I thought I was going to read the story of Buddha, and then I realized as I was reading that I was wrong. So I don't know if that is a common misconception about this novel, so I wanted to clarify that for people who might read it and might think that and might expect that this novel is about Buddha. It is not. This is the story. What this is the story of a journey of spiritual self-discovery by a young man called Siddhartha. It is not the story of the Buddha or the enlightened one, right? Now, having said that, apparently there are many echoes between Siddhartha's life and that of the Buddha. Now, another aside that I think I need to make here, I am not a Buddhist. Okay, I know very little about Buddhism, so this video is not about spirituality or religion. It is a book review, okay? I'm just reviewing a novel here. Okay, so now, without making any spoilers, let me talk a little bit about what you can expect from this novel. So, one day, a young aristocrat decides to leave his palace and go on a literal and spiritual journey, thus renouncing all the material comforts his position affords him. Siddhartha becomes homeless and spends most of his time meditating. He's seeking enlightenment. I can only speak for myself here, but I think this novel could be a good introduction to Buddhist philosophy for people who know nothing or very little about it. But I would say that it is also a good novel. So you don't need to be interested in Eastern philosophies either in order to enjoy this novel. And I think that is the novel's greatest achievement. It doesn't feel like Hesse is proselytizing Buddhism here. The novel is not preachy, which I think in the hands of a lesser writer it could have easily become so. Okay, if you're interested in Buddhism, you would probably learn a lot about it and be encouraged to read and learn more about it after reading this novel. But if you want to read a beautiful story written in simple and beautiful prose, then you should also probably read Siddhartha, okay? I think for many people this novel could be an awakening, and I think it is certainly thought-provoking. There is also something very soothing about the narrative. Now, I've observed that a lot of people, Western people, who are not raised within a Buddhist tradition, I have noticed that they approach Buddhism more as a philosophy or as a way of life than as a religion. And Hermann Hesse must have been a pioneer in that, because he became interested in Buddhism before it had become what it is today in Europe and in North America particularly, where there are many people interested in meditation and other aspects of Buddhism, right? He did that way ahead of its time. You don't need to know anything about Buddhism to read Hesse's novel. I want to emphasize that. And nothing in the novel would be difficult to understand. Hesse is a Western writer. He's writing in a Western language for a Western audience. In fact, the narrative and the style here are incredibly simple, and that's part of the beauty of the book, I think. So is Siddhartha about Buddhism? Is it a novel about Buddhism? I don't think it is. And I think it would be reductive to say that it is. It is clear, however, that Hesse was inspired by Buddhism, but as I said a moment ago, he's not here to preach or shove Buddhism down the reader's throat. Also, as I said, I knew nothing about Buddhism, or nearly nothing. Buddhism is not something that I am particularly interested in, and yet I loved this book. So I think Siddhartha is a novel for everyone, and you don't need to have any particular knowledge or interests in order to read it and make the most of it. The character of Siddhartha is fascinating. He's rich, he's beautiful, he's smart, he has it all. But he's also interested in knowledge. Despite all his privilege, Siddhartha wants to learn, and he's willing to give up all the comforts and all the advantages that his caste provides and instead pursue enlightenment. Siddhartha has a best friend, Govinda, who will accompany him in his journey of self-discovery. And you can think about Siddhartha as Quixote and Govinda as Sancho. And if you don't get this reference, you probably should check out my recent review of Don Quixote, to which I am going to link here as well in case you're interested. But going back to this short novel, well, it covers most of Siddhartha's life, and because we follow the character's journey into maturity, Siddhartha is a Bildungsroman, or a coming-of-age story, and I would go as far as to say that it is one of the best novels belonging to that Bildungsromans category I have ever read. One thing I do regret about this book is not having read it when I was younger, a lot younger. I have a feeling that this novel would have made a bigger impact on me if I had read it when I was, I don't know, probably between 13 to 17 years old. But I guess I'll never know if that is true, right? And this might be different for other people, right? I'm not saying you need to be young to enjoy it. I think that Siddhartha is an excellent book, worth reading no matter your age. So I would actually recommend it pretty much to anybody. As I said, you don't need to be interested in Buddhism. At its heart, Siddhartha is a novel about searching for enlightenment, searching for truth, and who wouldn't find that interesting? But of course, this is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below now. This is all from me for now. I hope that you are all doing very well, and I hope to see you again very soon for another book review. Bye for now.